basketball was something that, before I found my faith, it was something that saved me from a lot.
Life is a season because once when you have a winter, then of course then you have summer, you have fall, you have spring, and that's just life is. So right now somebody may be in a winter season and they're basically looking forward to a spring. Philip, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming down. So the people who don't know about you, can you please tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so Phil Jurek from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Proud father of two. I got a 3-year-old son, Philip Jr., a 2-year-old daughter, Eliza Grace, believer of Jesus Christ, following his footsteps today. So that's a
nice.
A little bit of.
So you were playing basketball with the Tennessee college, right?
Yes. So I went to a local high school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, East Ridge High School, and then went to Tennessee for a year out of high school, redshirted there, decided I need to come back to Chattanooga State to get my associate's degree, and really just mature a little bit. And then I made my way back out to Oklahoma State is where I got my degree, and I played a couple of years there as well.
So are you originally from here, this area, Tennessee, or you're not?
No, originally from Inverness, Florida, small town, kind of central, near Ocala, a little north of Tampa. So grew up there, and then actually my parents separated when I was in the 6th grade, and I lived in Florida through middle school, and then I came up here and started going to East Ridge High School. So that's when I moved to Chattanooga from Inverness, Florida. Is where I'm originally from.
And the basketball career, you started with Oklahoma, or you started with the Tennessee?
So I started at Tennessee, and then I made my way. I finished at Oklahoma State. So that's where I played 2 years there, and then actually got the opportunity to play overseas a little bit after that professionally. But yeah, graduated Oklahoma State in 2013. And was blessed enough. I got my degree there, so that was good.
Okay, so you're not playing right now, right?
No.
First of all, how tall are you?
6'9". So I'm 6'9", 300 pounds, give or take. So I'm heavier than when I played. So I get out there with my son now. Junior's kind of humbling me and getting back around the game, and it's always been an interest in mine to give back. Basketball was something that before I found my faith, it was something that saved me from a lot. So I know it's my passion to give back in that way, and humbly enough, I am starting to play again. So it's been fun. It's been interesting.
So I know, you've been, like you said, you've been struggling with something, and of course we're going to talk about that. You've been having some issues with alcohol. And so how basically you got into that?
Yeah, so I would say my journey with alcohol started... It runs in the family. Honestly, I was around it as a child, and chose not to drink for more than one reason until I was about 21 or 22. And when I was playing ball, so it was all the normal things of the partying and didn't realize it was a huge issue at the time, in the world's eyes, everything was fine. I was playing, I was going to school, I was on track to graduate, which I did. And, looking back, I can see that's where the struggles began. But really, it's really when I found my faith. I got saved when I was 27, and that was right when I quit playing ball. I went overseas for a couple of years. I graduated when I was 23. So for about 3 or 4 years, I went back and forth with playing.
So is your father had any issue with the alcohol, or?
It stems from my mother.
Mother, okay.
My
How would your parents actually say?
yeah, yeah, it's and that's why I chose. I was around my mother, obviously growing up, and we kind of separated as I started playing and went off to college, and the further I got away from, I guess, the trauma. Looking back,
Hmm.
I decided, it wasn't too bad. It was something that I could control. It was something that I was gonna partake in, and I think that led me down a journey, really here till recently, and I know we'll get more into it as we go, but it was kind of the tip of the iceberg for me. It was alcohol was something that I've recently realized that it was the thing that it was my outwardly action that I did the world saw, but there was just so much going on underneath the surface that was really developing, and it finally came to a head, a couple of years ago, leading up to last year, and I think that's where the transformation started happening.
So I'm pretty sure it's affected your personal life, and of course also affected your marriage life.
Oh yes,
Do-
yes,
Would
yes,
you a little bit talk about that?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it affected. It was. It snuck into every area of my life. To be honest with you, Farhan, it was something that was uncontrollable. It was unmanageable, and it was something that I held on to. And it may sound weird, but it was something that I thought that I had control of, and I was going to prove everybody else wrong. And it was the one thing that I didn't let go. And as I was, dying to my old self, and I found, I started following Jesus. I started doing all the things. It was the common denominator in a lot of trauma in my life, either caused from childhood or trauma that I was causing. And it did, to be transparent, it led to a divorce that it was hard. It
Yeah.
it came with all the things, and I would say it was just the tip of the iceberg. It was something that God was obviously showing me that I needed to give up. And once I did, finally, October 27th or 22nd of last year was, I would say, my sobriety date. I haven't drank since October 22nd, and in that time, God has opened up my eyes of just really everything that I was suppressing with the substance.
So what basically, I mean, I know you told me that because of your mom, you have this little bit, inclined to the alcohol thing. But there was any other thing that basically you trying to numb because, with the alcohol or something, there's some kind of a other trauma going on with you.
Yeah, and it's a journey, to be honest with you. For I'm still on that road to fully grasp why the things were happening. And but really, if I had to answer it, it was just the anxieties and fears and the shame and guilt that I was feeling on the inside. And alcohol just helped numb. For me, it just helped. It just went hand in hand with some things that I was struggling with, and it helped me cope until it didn't. And then once that stopped, that was my understanding of, I needed help. I needed this thing was bigger than me, and luckily, I found the Lord found me.
Yeah.
I should say.
So that's actually the issue with alcohol also, with the people that actually in denial. And you are actually brave enough to basically say, yeah, actually, I do have a problem.
Yeah.
Because most people, they don't think they have a problem. And that's why they're still kind of struggle. And also, I mean, like you said, you found a faith and Jesus and all that. So if, you know, somebody out there is having struggle right now, having, you know, issues, what would you tell them to do, basically?
Really, I would just say it's not the substance. You know, once I started realizing that, and I did, I drew an illustration last year, and it was a visual for me, but I would say that the alcohol is just the tip of the iceberg. That's what outwardly the world may see, but there's an underlying issue that, you know, in my case, in my testimony, you know, God was trying to reveal. For me, it was bitterness, it was shame, it was guilt, it was abandonment, it was a lot deeper than the alcohol. And I think in the world that we live in now, you know, it's just everything so easily at your hands, you know, and it's acceptable to drink and you know, so for me in my case, I guess my advice would be that, you know, it's to get past the substance, to you know, take time to just really do some digging, and for my case, it was you know, seeking wise counsel. It was getting around a whole nother community, and then realizing it was just bigger than me. It wasn't
See,
anything.
that's a key point, actually. You realize that it was bigger than you.
Right.
And that's where you basically say, well, I need help.
Right. And which was, it was hard for me for the longest because before, you know, diving into a little bit more of my journey, you know, growing up, my father was my God. You know, that's the man who I saw. And my father, to this day, still, he does the best that he can, you know, and then basketball shortly after my father, you know, we had a brief time where we weren't connected in high school, and that's when I moved up here. And you know, basketball became my God. And then, you know, once that stopped, I started realizing, and just my size alone, you know, I just, at that time, I just didn't think that there was anything bigger. I thought, you know, I could handle a lot that
Yeah.
I couldn't, and the world would see me as this man that, you know, was big on that. So I guess I fed into that image, and then you know, that's where the rubber started hitting the road with me, when just feeling so, you know, the anxieties, the worries, you know, everything that I don't deal with today, and life is still going on, you know, I'm still
Yeah.
journeying down. It's just the weight that I felt before, you know, I don't feel that. And it was because I got, you know, I allowed myself to feel, I allowed myself to grief and lament. And then I had a community around me that was supporting me through that. And that's something that I'm forever grateful for.
So do you still have a good relationship with your mother or not?
No,
No.
no, I do. And, no, and that was something I learned, you know, and it was just how I grew up, and even as the world would see it, you know, one thing that I realized that I was doing, I was waiting for a physical death when it came even to my mother, or certain things that I was dealing with. And then I think as men, especially, we need things to die to be able to deal with it. And the
Yeah.
hardest thing for me to have to do was to grieve and lament the loss of something that wasn't physically dead. And my mother was a big thing that I had to accept, that even though that she wasn't physically gone, that, you know, there was just some grieving and lamenting that needed to happen for me to be able to be free from the bondage that I was feeling. And that led me feel the grieving and lamenting for my separation from the kid's mother. And it was, and I think, and I would say, you know, the world would tell you to, you know, and especially the world we live in now, it's so fast paced, and it's go, 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 don't slow down. And, you know, once I started realizing, and you know, things don't have to die for you to grieve over them, or
Yeah, everybody actually coping mechanism is different. I don't know how you basically using a coping mechanism for kind of loss of your mother.
You're right.
There's any specific things you do? Do you do meditation? Do you do meditation or?
Really far on, to be honest with you, it's faith. You know, it's reading the word. It's getting. I do a daily devotional where I spend 30, 45 minutes. I like to say I do it in the mornings, but now it's just as life happens. Really for me, it's just spending the time with the Lord, man, and realizing that the stories in the Bible are still living truth today. And I found comfort in that. When it's even guys in the Bible, whether it's a David or a Paul or something, Paul talks about the thorn in his side, and we don't know what that is, but really, yeah, it's just kind of seeing that, just getting the comfort out of that. And
so in your case, basically faith is basically save your life.
oh yeah, it's definitely saved my natural life and my spiritual life as well. I think before I stepped out, I was a faithful man, but I wasn't obedient in any sense. I was
Elaborate that obedient. What do you mean?
so I was faithful in the sense of, it's like, okay, I accepted that God was bigger than me, but I wasn't willing to put in the work.
Okay.
I wasn't. So my journey began in October. I joined a ministry, Renew Ministry, and I actually went up to a farm to live for 5 months, and that's where I realized it was, I was going to church, I was doing all the things a Christian does, but I wasn't obedient in the sense of following the Lord. I wanted Him to be my Savior. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want Him to be my Lord, and if that makes sense. I wanted to be saved, but I didn't want to follow. And I think that was the obedience part because it says, in the Bible, faith without works is useless. So I had all the faith in the world. I was surrounded by pastors. I was surrounded by men who were pouring into me, but my heart was still dead because I wasn't obedient. I was still living a life of sin. I was still, choosing. And I say all this to get back to the alcohol part. There was always the tip of my iceberg led back to alcohol. And with alcohol, came, and I wouldn't say so much partying, but, just a different environment than I was called to be in. Yeah. And that's where the obedience side, I found that, now it's living in wisdom and reaping the harvest later instead of seeking that instant gratification or that instant, win, and then, facing the consequences. And, alcohol brought a lot of consequences in my life because I wasn't living in wisdom. I was living for a quick fix. I was just numbing a pain that I was feeling. Yeah. And, I'll say unfortunately, that led to some consequences that, I still deal with today, so I don't feel the weight of those because I know, the journey that I'm on now. It's just different.
So anybody guided you in this whole process, or you basically said, you know what, I had it, enough is enough, I'm just gonna go and find some help or something like that? Because in I won't say most cases, but in some cases, people basically don't try to seek help, and somebody has to grab them and shake them. Hey, listen, you need help.
Right.
So in your case, would you say, okay, somebody really shook me and said, no, Philip, you need help? Or you just say, okay, I had it, enough is enough, I'm going to go because this is destroying my life right now?
Yeah, I would say a happy mix of both of those. I had the men pouring in my life who they were obedient. They were, I had a gentleman in my life that was so faithful in his journey and actually went through the Renew ministry himself, 5, 6 years ago. And just seeing his life. And now I'm looking, I say that we're on this side of the river, but when I was on the other side, looking at him, I just, I knew that I wanted something that he had, and I didn't know exactly what it was. But today it's, having that peace, having that joy, and it was just really other faithful men who just they were obedient, and then a mixture of me just knocking my head into the wall time and time again. And, I guess getting to a point where I just didn't have any other options. I knew, and that was one thing I always heard in my life. It's, oh, you have a gentle heart. But having a gentle heart, good intentions still lead to hell. And that was something that I learned the hard way more times than not, because I didn't follow those intentions with an action. I would just, oh, well, I mean good, but it's different in meaning good and doing good.
Doing good, yeah.
And then I just saw so many men in my life who suffered from saying similar testimonies. It's, all of us have a story for a reason, and it's special to me because, I think we can go in here and talk about all of the basketball accolades or even work and life, and anybody can do those things. But, a man's testimony is true to himself, so just seeing men live out their testimonies and coming from gnarly backgrounds, and getting through it and getting to, I'll say, to this side of the river, it was just being led by them, their actions, because, the words weren't doing anything, but just over time, just seeing it, led me to, one, knowing that there's better, and two, just wanting, just desiring a better life.
Yeah, there's always, you're looking for something, and there's always a help, like some kind of a man. Do you have any mentor right now, or you don't have any mentor?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I have a lot of guys, and God's really blessed me there, with mentors in my life, either through the ministry of Renew or even, I have a gentleman, David, that's been in my life for about 10 years now, and he's walked down some dark valleys with me and just loved me the whole time, and now that I experienced that unconditional love, from the Father in heaven, I understand his approach to it. And I would say there's about 5 or 6 other men that God's put in my life where, they're just rooting for me, they're praying. And the most important thing is that they got where I was in my journey, and they were just so patient with me. Because I think, opening up a little bit more on my side, I grew up, experiencing conditional love, and then especially in sports, it's performance based. You're loved as long as you're performing, and I took that approach into life, and I just, I always thought it's like, oh, I got to perform. And today I don't, I know that not to be true.
Well, in sports, of course, in professional life, it is a conditional love, but did you have the same issue with your personal life as well?
Yes, just growing up, and it really stemmed, once my parents separated, and I lived with my mother, and there was just conditions on everything, and my mom did the best that she could with her resources as well. It was just a snowball effect. They talk about the generational curses and things that came from her childhood that led, to ours, and, thank the good Lord, they won't be passed down to my children. But it was, yeah, it was just that, just seeing or feeling a condition on love, and that was something that I had to get through to.
So that's actually, yeah, I mean, in cases, basically, like you said, the conditional love, basically it's from the, if you do this, I'll give you this. Okay, if you don't do this, I don't do this. I think we don't realize as a parent that when we do this, how effect this is on the kid. Because
Right.
then this is, okay, well, if I don't do this, my mom or my dad is not going to love me.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize at that time, parents I'm talking about, but in your case, it's really affected you.
Oh yeah, and I didn't realize far on, to be honest with you. I didn't until recently. I just lived a very fast life. I just went, from one thing to the next, and it was just that cycle that I was caught in that I didn't even realize. The things that I've dealt with because I was creating my own trauma in my life, and this, and that just felt comfortable for whatever that felt more comfortable sitting in that than dealing with the trauma from things that weren't caused by me. And it was unfortunate because that comes a lot of hurt and it comes a lot of pain. But the good news is that the Lord can use that too. And one of my favorite verses is, those who plant in tears will harvest with shouts of joy. So I just think of all those tears, of hurt, just to experience the harvest of it and understand that, my testimony and everybody's testimony is just, it's that way for a reason. And and I think the sole reason in my life, I went from being self-centered to others focused, like focusing, even sharing my story now, I do it for others, just for the one that is still lost or the one that is still struggling. And, I think that's what we have to step into, because it goes beyond anything that I may gain, but,
Yeah, no, that's why you're here, because
yeah,
we like to hear your story, and that way you can help other people right now who are really struggling.
right,
And still, some of them may be in denial that they don't have an issue.
right,
So they can basically go and find some help, rather in a religion, or maybe find a mentor. I mean, in my business, what we do actually, it's having a mentor. We say is if you have a mentor, they will basically save you 10 years of your hard work. So
yes,
in
yes.
your case,
Yes.
you got a mentor.
Yes. And I remember there was the guy who's over, Donovan is over Renew. And I remember early October or late October when I got there. So this just talks about, having mentors. And I remember Donovan, the first words I heard him speak were, he said, "Guys, I'm 20 years into this journey and I'm one bad decision away from the devil repaying my misery." So, and I just remember looking at him and then, but it's just that it's having men that are further along the
Yep.
journey telling you those things and faithfully walking and staying obedient, so you can, like you said, you're like, I'm sheltered from a lot of things. If I would have stayed in denial, like, man, to think about, but it all stems from having other men in my life who are just a little bit further down. We're all on the same road, it's just where they are in their walk and where I am in my walk. And then now just understand that, and like you said, it's for the man or woman who's getting on that road.
Yeah.
And that's where my heart is today. That's what drives me to do pretty much whether it's work, whether it's my family, religion, and it's little to do with me and a lot to do with others. And that was something that changed, because I think growing up in a performance home and then, playing ball at a high level, I had it ingrained in me. It's like, oh, work hard and what am I going to get? You work hard. But, and I see now, I look at guys even who's went on and been, in professional sports, you just see the best of the players. They're the most humble players. They understand that it's bigger than them. And I think that's what it's all about.
So, I mean, no, you're right. Because, like you said, it's basically kind of journey. And right now, you are in that journey to basically not only helping yourself right now, but with this kind of a message, with this kind of a talk, you can help other people. And of course, that's basically the reason that also actually this is so I actually in my life I noticed that if you help other people and that will basically helping yourself either
Oh yeah,
also. So
yeah. In return,
in return,
yeah,
yeah.
in return, yes.
So
But
every time you give someone extra tip or something, you feel so good. Oh my God, yeah, okay. That person is, happy, but you are actually more happier than that person
right,
because,
right,
inside, that's what this is. Happiness is basically come inside.
right.
It's not come from
It's
outside.
not outwardly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. It was. I thought love and happiness and joy was a outwardly expression, and it's not. It's something that comes from within. So it's having the peace and the joy, and what it comes from serving others. And then in return you get to experience a cool life. To whether it was connecting. You don't know who you're going to connect with, but it's exciting.
So do you have any community that right now you go to regular basis to talk about we call that like inner demons?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I probably have 20 guys in my phone and we're all busy. We all have kids and jobs, but we all check in on each other and know that, and I do a daily devotional. So I think I share it with about 7 people and it's just doing life with other men and that's where I'm at in this journey now. It's having the accountability and that's a tough thing too as a man. I think looking for me, I didn't want accountability because I wasn't obedient. I wasn't living a life that was worth that was worth being held accountable. But now it's having that special, testimony that I do now. It's just, and having other men just to hold you accountable is,
Speaking of other men, how's your relationship with your dad now?
it's amazing. It's amazing. He's still in Florida,
Okay.
currently, but yeah, there's the prayer is to get him up here, and we talk almost every day. So it's funny, my dad's in his 60s now, but we're going through a similar season. And whether it's my dad quit drinking too, and to know, yeah, that's my that would be my advice too. It's just never too late. It's seeing the decisions my dad's making later in his life, and to be on that journey with him. And it was nothing that we did together. We didn't call each other saying, "Hey, we're going to make these decisions," but it was just the Lord's timing and some decisions that we're making, personal, relationship wise, or down to a substance that we've struggled with, and it's been special to enjoy even that relationship with my dad.
Since you are a dad now,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
and you have one beautiful son and one beautiful daughter.
Yes.
So how's your relationship with your kids now?
Oh, it's amazing. It's as Father Day comes up Sunday. It's something that um, this time last year it wasn't. So humbly I'm thankful for that today, and I know that it was nothing that I did. The only thing I did was just admit that I had a desire to change, and then I surrounded myself by people who were changing. And ultimately by the one, God, the one that that the ultimate sorcerer, and then who can change you. But yeah, it's just it's sweet. It's a very special time for me and Junior and Eliza, and then just be able to cherish those moments with them, and day in and day out, just love them, love them unconditionally. And they're just at a fun age now. Philip Jr.'s 3 and Eliza's 2, and she's Eliza's got a spirit in her of, she just needs to be loved, and it's nice to know that I can do that today. And Junior's, he's got his mama's heart, so he's sweet and gentle, and just to be able to see that in my son and appreciate it, and not feel like he was any less than, because maybe he doesn't want to, or he's too young to even tell. But even in my own mind, if that kid never picks up a basketball, I know he's going to be okay. And for a long time, that was my community. So I was going to push that on my kids, and just today I just see that so differently.
Now you can spend more time with them while you are not only physically there, you are mentally there as well.
Right, yeah.
Before, I'm assuming that, of course, you were maybe physically there,
right,
but mentally you were somewhere else.
Yes.
And that's a big, huge difference that basically even kids can sense that.
Oh, yeah.
I know he's young, but still, as a human, they can sense that, okay, my dad, how you basically interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure now he can basically feel that, that my dad is 100%, it's there, present.
Yeah. And that's, the present, because I was physically there, but, I was so many places, and today it's very important for me to be where my feet are. And if that's with my kids, if that's here, that's where God has me placed. And it's I finally am at a point in my life where I know, I deserve those things, and my loved ones deserve for me to be the best version of myself, and to be open and honest. And my kids deserve that. They deserve a father who's present and who can say, hey, I messed up, but this is, this is how you fix it, and it's special.
Yeah, it is special. Of course, the bonding with your kids, and all that. I know you talk about a little bit, the anxiety. That's basically what started this alcohol thing. As you know, mental health in the world, especially in the U.S., is declining very bad.
Yes.
Every other person, especially the young generation, is having this mental issues.
Right.
They're popping pills. They have anxiety. Did you have any kind of a social anxiety, or you have some, specific kind of anxiety? And
mine was one. It was stemmed from my size. God bless
because
me.
you're tall.
Yeah, tall and a big guy. So everywhere I walk into, I very rarely walk in somewhere and I don't talk to somebody, which is great today. But when I guess when I was living a life where I wore different masks, I had the work mask, I had the church, I had all these different masks. I think that's where my anxieties came from, because I never knew when I walked in a room what mask I was going to have to put on. And I think finally, once I took off that mask and I was just myself, and I allowed myself to be, then that's when the anxieties and worries went away, because I realized, people love me for who I am, not anything that I have to offer. And God blessed me with, one, a testimony, and two, a physical appearance to be able to connect to maybe the one who's struggling in the gas station, or just wherever I'm at. It's easy for me to connect with somebody. And I think before, anxieties came with, not living, always looking over my shoulder, or always worrying about, it's like, oh, where did I meet this person? Where did I know this person? And I would say 90% of it, 99% of it wasn't even reality. It was just thoughts in my own head that, I wouldn't let go of. And finally, once I let go of that, once I let go of this worldly image that I thought I had to live up to, I think that's where the anxieties went away, and then I realized that,
So how you came up with all this, okay, well, this is basically just in my mind. This is, I have to come over with this anxiety thing because I have to go. My body is what it is right now.
right.
And, I'm 6'9", and, I'm a big guy. So what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's just really trial and error, just knowing and then reverting back to the truth, and reading the word and then just seeing other men, live out lives that deal with certain things. And they're like, and, I talked about earlier, the thorn in Paul's side. Like, we don't know what that was, but it's, it's some things you just have to deal with. And, and they're good, to find the good in it, and to be in a place where I can receive the blessing, instead of looking at it as, oh, it's a curse, or it's it's something that I have to struggle with.
So, I mean, since of course we are living in this artificial intelligence and all the social media, especially younger generation, all they do is just basically look at the phones.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I think one time I actually tweeted on that, hey, this social media basically making us unsocial in real life.
Well, it is, yeah, because we just sit there and we stare at a screen, and it's
yeah.
and I've never been big on social media. I'm old school at heart still, and thankfully, I think that even saved me from a lot more troubles, and yeah, but just that personal interaction, and that was something I struggled with, because I just, the guilt and the shame just ate away at me, and I just got comfortable living in that chaos. And whether it stemmed from my childhood into my adult life, I found comfort in the chaos. And once I realized that there was a better life to live, and I saw other men doing it, and obviously started taking the steps to do that. It's I think that's where my journey is today too, to still.
So do you have still, I'm sure, I mean, right now you're still in a recovery thing. You still have pretty sure the trigger points that basically triggers you to go towards back to alcohol, and how you basically deal with that.
Yeah, I would say honestly, if you think God delivers you from some things, and He doesn't from others, and I would say faithfully that the temptation to drink is not there. That's something I feel like I'm fully delivered from, and the reason why I can say that is dealing with the underlying issues. So it's just so many guardrails that are in place in my life today that I would have to hit to get to that point to be able to want to use that substance again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard. That was something that, digging up those roots and replacing them with good seed, and giving it enough time to take root, and just doing that. Yeah, I would say, just having guardrails in place.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
What kind of a guard you basically you will suggest somebody else who's having this kind of issue, or they're having basically temptation to go back and drink?
Yeah, I would say in my journey, it's, I have 2 or 3 men who know where I'm at all times. I share, our phones can be used for good too. We were just talking about it, as much evil as evil is maybe a strong word, but as many temptations as there are on a cell phone, there's I have 3 or 4 guys who know where I'm at. They can ping me at any time, and there's an alert if I stop here or there, and it may sound weird, to anyone who's listening, but if you're living life the right way, then you don't have to be scared of accountability, and that's hard for a man to, even me, before it's like, man, I'm not going to let everybody know where I'm at all times. But now it's like, I look back and that's silly. Like, why not? Like, let those who love me, know where I'm at, just for and for, what, for any reason, but to know that it's like, hey, this person cares about me enough that, and I care, and I care enough about that person to, do the right thing, even when I don't feel like it.
So you're basically saying that two, person or your friends know your location where you're going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I just check in,
You basically
I
share your
just,
locations with them.
yeah. Yeah. And it may sound, it's extreme to some, when I say that, but I think as men, we have to be careful because we go to extremes in other ways. So why not do it for, good measures? And that's something that I started realizing. It's like, okay, I went to extremes before, whether it was in my drinking or whether it was in my, running like I was away from my calling, so why wouldn't I, go to the extreme to set boundaries in my life?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's triggers. So you have to make sure that you don't have those trigger objects around you. Let's say, if you want to stay away from alcohol, don't have alcohol at home.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Don't,
it's just and it's realizing that it's bigger than me. It's something that I just can't, there's and you see it throughout the Bible, men there, we all have that one or two things that we just we can't have. And as long as we stay away from it, it's good. And, alcohol was one of mine. And because it wasn't the alcohol, it was the sin that it led to. And once I started realizing that, it wasn't the drink, it was the life or the lifestyle that it led to. And it's, really just not desiring that anymore.
So that's, yeah, no, actually, you got a very good point there because the lifestyle. So socially, as you know, we drink.
Right.
I mean, I don't drink, but
Yes. Yeah.
socially, oh yeah, it's just a social drinking. But you have to draw a line somewhere because oh, it's just a one drink, oh, it's
Right.
just a two drink,
Right.
and that's how basically it starts. And in your case, I'm pretty sure it started the same way too. Okay, well, this is just I'm drinking in the socially, or having one or two drinks and three drinks, and then of course then it goes 4, 5, 6, and then beyond.
Right.
And
And mine was a little bit different because, in sports, that's what we did. We played, we practiced, and we partied. And it wasn't an issue until it was, until it was, and I didn't realize, because for lack of better words, I was functional. I was, I started every single game. So it was, and I didn't believe in anything else. I just that was all that I knew, and that's all that I did. And then once I started realizing that life is just so much bigger than even what I was exposed to, that's when it became an issue. So I think one, it's just realizing that one sin, like one sin to one man is not for another. But in my case, it was, and it would be today. And to realize that and to know it's something that is I'll say a small price today. It was a big price in my life at one point, but it's just something that I can't do, and I'll be able to enjoy so many other things, so it was just my one thing, or one of my one things that, I had to put down.
so I'm pretty sure you socialize now with your friends. So if they drink, does it bother you?
No, I would say not. Well, honestly, I'm not around it. I'm at a point now where the community that I'm around, it's just, it's normal to go do something and not be around it. So that's the season that I'm in now. With work, I would say, I traveled a couple weeks ago and I was around it a little bit, and it wasn't, it was something I could look past. But, I have to be careful because it's, 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, I'm okay, but I don't want to tempt, like, why tempt it, and in my case, it's, everything that God has done to lead me to this point, I stay cautious about, what and I'm open about it, and to realize that that's okay, that leads to more good conversations than it does bad conversations. And I think that's what people don't realize. They think it's like, oh, it's going to be weird if I say this. And it's like, no, I've had so many conversations on the tail end of saying, it's like, hey, I don't socialize in that. And, whether it's somebody following up and saying, hey man, I quit too. I had a gentleman the other day come up to me and say, he's like, yeah, I've been 40 days without a drink. And it just opens up so many more conversations than I think that I could even ever imagine.
I think that's the key point, actually. I think people, if they open up, and I mean, it's a taboo because, you're drinking, or you have alcohol issues, or you have a substance issue or something like that.
Right.
It's socially, of course, it's become a taboo. But like you said, if we open up and talk about our stories and struggles,
right,
and I think we can get more help than we imagine.
Oh yeah, and then we can help others in return.
We can help others. Yeah.
And that was a big thing with me, like, because once I realized, like, yes, I desired to have a better life for me, my family, and my kids. But then once I started realizing that was the 1% of what God was trying to do in my life, it's for others. It's especially like you say in the world that we live in today. It's so many people are socially drinking, and going home and struggling with it, and it's to take the stance of, it's like, hey, well, I'm not going to partake in this, but this is why, because this is a journey that I get to experience without it, and doing that. And as men, we don't hear that. It was hard for me to hear that, but you see that as a man, and over and over, and then like, that's what changes, because I looked at other men. It's like, man, they did that over and over. I saw them over and over not do it, and then you just see how their lives are. Their family's healthy. They're men who still struggle, but they're on a journey that helps others, and in return, it helps them. So,
yeah, I mean, as you know, life, of course, is all about struggle. We have struggles in different ways. Some people have a substance issue struggles. Some people have relationships struggles.
Yes.
But, there was a very famous quote from Jim Rohn. I don't know if you know Jim Rohn. He used to be a life coach. Mm-hmm. He said, don't wish things were easy. Wish you were better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more wisdom.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's good.
I mean, so that's the more we basically educate ourselves and, try to educate other people, our experience and all that, like basically communication, and open up with other people and talk about their struggles, and listen to them and talk about your struggles so they can learn something from them.
Yeah.
I think that's basically, help a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem, the world we are living in, we are so tight.
Yes.
We don't want to tell other people what we having issues with, because sometimes we all have this imposter syndrome. We basically, oh my God, I don't know if I look like I'm some kind of a hot shot,
right?
But basically, I'm not.
And those masks, I said it earlier. It's like we, as men, or as we put on all these different masks, and it's so tiring, to the one who may be listening, that it's just like, once you remove all those masks and you just let yourself be, and then that's where, like, that's the sweet spot of life, and that's where you're protected, because you're kind of in that pocket, in a sense, and you can feel like if you get outside of it, and it's like, you don't want to put that mask. Like, I don't want to put a mask back on. And I was talking to another brother today at lunch, and I was just like, man, looking back, it was just so exhausting. But the exhausting part was the imposter to the fake it till you make it, or as men, it's growing up in sports, it was the take ibuprofen and get over it. It's don't talk about it. And to see the world changing, even sports are different. There's a lot more talks about anxieties and worries and stress, and even in the last 10 years that's shifted. So as a man who struggled from that, going through that journey, to come back now and say, hey, like, it's okay to not have it figured out. It's okay to struggle And I was having a talk with my dad the other day. It's okay to admit that you're not having a good day, and before I wouldn't do that. I would, put on the smile and my loved ones knew. It's like my dad calls it a fluff day, is what he said. Fluff day. Yeah, Philip's having a fluff day. We'll get the real story later, and it's just that it's being open enough to share that story and to realize that you can reach so many people, and my heart goes out to the one who's struggling today, and that's why I think you said it, the quote, and that's one thing I started realizing, except like not asking God to change my life, but just to give me the strength and endurance to live the life I was called to live. And that's scary. That's walking by faith and not by sight, because my sight would tell me to, oh no, don't do that. It's scary. Go do something that you're comfortable with. But, that's just lies. That's lies from the adversary to keep you stuck. And once you start, and I do, I just pray for the strength and the wisdom and the guidance to, be able to handle what I'm called to.
Your story, of course, I'm sure, hopefully with this podcast will help other people. And you're still, this is your journey. So you're still
yeah.
Going through this journey.
Oh, yeah.
You have not the destination yet.
Yeah. I don't know if we ever get there. I finally came to a point, and I did. I was a very high performer in a lot of areas of my life. And honestly, Farhan, a lot of times I would get to the finish line and look around and say, why I don't even want this. Like, why am I even here? And now it's just accepting that, I may not ever get there, but that's okay, because it's like, I think as the world would say, it's like sometimes we set these goals for ourselves and then we get there. And then for me, it was the destruction left behind. It was the guilt and the shame that getting to those goals, whether it was basketball or whether it was my work life or personal life, or, to get the house, to get the cars, to get all these things. And then I got there and you look around and you're like, man, I don't even know if I want to be here. And then what do you have to do? You got to turn around. And, so now to be comfortable, it's like, I may never get there, but that's okay, because it's just a daily journey that we're all on. And if we can connect in any way with others, to help, and, that's better than keeping it inside. And
so you were like, when you were playing sports, you were some kind of a guy like, okay, winning is everything to me, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to win.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And to get, to get to a level to perform, whether it was the Division I or where I played or even overseas, it was very cutthroat at times, or it felt like that to me, because honestly, basketball saved me from a lot of things, and I was just so fearful of losing that. I needed to win. I had to win, because I didn't know what the alternative was. I didn't have an alternative. That was the biggest thing in my life until it wasn't, and I think God showed me along the way. I tore my Achilles when I was a junior. And that was where I think that first little God nugget was. It's like, hey man, there's something bigger than this ball. There's something bigger. I was like, no, I'm gonna recover. I remember the doctor at Kansas State told me, he said, you'll never play again. And I remember those words. And instead of realizing that was a moment that I needed to seek something larger, I held on. I said, no, I'm gonna prove this man wrong, and I recovered, I healed, and I stayed on that journey a little bit longer. And, but once that was officially over and I stopped playing, and I was like, wow, there's something bigger out there.
So, yeah, for some people, of course, success and winning is everything. Like basically they destroy their personal life to become, some kind of a champion.
Right.
And we were talking about the destination, so I don't know who said that. I think Tim Grover said that. that success, success is like a marathon, but without a finish line.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
Because once you get there, then you say, okay, no, there's something I need to do something else. Then you
Right.
go back and then do. So
Yeah.
I think Tim Grover said that. Tim Grover, he was the basically a physical coach for Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I said, oh my God, yeah, he's so right. I said,
Right.
yeah, success. He said success is like marathon, but without a finish line. There's no finish line.
Yeah. And I think today it's just so saturated, success, even in the, like what is, I would be interested to even know what that is anymore, because there's so many avenues, there's so many ways. And I think more times than not, it leads to destruction. It's just the way of keeping us busy enough that.
So success, I think, is everybody's definition is different. For you, stay away from this alcohol thing is a success. For some people, is a relationship, good relationship is a success.
Right.
And, having a loving spouse is a success.
Right.
I mean, so everybody's definition of success is different, but I love that his code that, every time I hear it or read it, I said, oh my God, he's so right.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no finish line. I mean, yeah, you once get there and then you say, okay, what I'm doing now, what I'm looking for now.
Right. I think in my journey, realizing, the finish line is not here, we're just passing through the
Yeah.
season. And I think that once I started realizing that, it's like even in smaller terms, like you're just passing through. And, what are you going to do in that season of passing through? Or are you going to be a light, or are you going to be, are you going to be a fountain, or are you going to be a drain? And that's when I started realizing that it's like even basketball, even my journey there, I was just passing through. But was I a good steward? No, and in some ways I was, but now I just realized that it's like whatever journey we're on, we're just passing through, and whether that's life as a whole or whether that's the season that you're in. And my encouragement would be is just realize just that it's like, just be a light for that season that you're in. And that way, when you're out of that season, you can look back and say, there wasn't destruction everywhere at every turn. It was hard, but it was a good season. And, I think that's the journey, to realize that the end goal is not here, and everybody's we're just all trying to, stay in that, not all of us, but, those who are in that mindset are, just trying to stay in that mindset of just passing through and leaving light and not destruction,
So moving forward, where you see yourself next year or two, to basically, do you think that you're gonna start some kind of a ministry?
Yeah. My hopes are there. I've prayed about that. The youth is kind of where my heart, and when I say youth, I mean 18 to 22, 23-year-old men who are transitioning from being a child in the world's eyes to becoming a men. And I'm passionate with that because I know that group's the ones that's going to lead my son and my daughter. So that's something I've been praying for, and I that would be if I had, a vision or a hope, that I could, get in. And I was around a group of individuals that were, 18 to 22, and they were just asking, they were like, man, it was so cool. You played on ESPN, you did this and this. This was a church group I was around. And I looked at all of them, and I told them, I said, you guys don't ever think what you're doing right now is not the coolest thing you could ever do. And I think as the world, they was, because a lot of them were in like internships, become a pastor, become, something. And in the world sense, it's like, oh, well, yeah, they're not playing a sport or they're not doing this. But in my case, it's like that led to nothing. That was just a facade of something, but what they're doing, it's like, man, this is everlasting. Like this is something that is so cool. And I think to be a part of something like that, to help, to lead and to have those men lead me too, I think that would be
Any
interesting.
maybe a coaching, basketball coaching?
Yeah, you never know what the Lord's doing. There's been avenues where my testimony and story could help. I don't know what that looks like at this current state, but yeah, it's a prayer right now to be able to share my journey and like we talked about, save maybe just the one from going down
Oh yeah,
hardship.
one. If you say one person, that's
Yeah.
a whole community.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I realize with me, it's like the men who poured into me to save and put me back on a firm foundation in my faith in the Lord and everything that I'm doing. It's to be able to do that to somebody else, especially in sports, because I look back and I had a lot of coaches and stuff pouring into me at that time, and I had a lot of men around me, but it wasn't, it was just for that season. It wasn't preparing me for anything else, and that's hard for a boy that grows up in that and then becomes a man. Once that season's over, what are you going to do? And to be able to be a man who could be there for somebody, I definitely would.
So, what would you advise someone who are not religious and they are struggling, and what kind of advice you can give it to them?
Just don't give up. Just it's coming from a man who wasn't. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't. I got saved because I just needed to know that there was something bigger than me. So my story is a little bit different, but I was scared to death of the journey I was going to go down if I didn't find something physically and spiritually bigger than myself. And so to the one who may be struggling in that area, just don't give up. Just keep.
Find a mentor.
Yeah, find a mentor. Find somebody you can do life with, and just do that. And as time goes on, your desires will change. You'll become like in my case, I just matured just a little bit, enough to be able to get to a point where I could stand up. And it just don't give up. If you have I would say that if you have that inside of you that you need to change or you're struggling, then there's something bigger. And maybe you don't know what that is, and I don't know if I fully know what that is today, so it's just that just find somebody to do life with and just start somewhere, and don't give up.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the main thing. Don't give up. And I think even though if someone is not religious or something, if they don't give up, there is some way they will find help,
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
help will find
I
them.
help. Well, yeah. And then it's like in my case, once I saw it, once it's like the Lord says, once you seek, then He'll find you. So it's the same thing there. It's like just seek it, and He'll find you. And be that I just have the inkling to change. Desire to change.
I
And
think that's what basically, if you have a desire to
yeah,
change, then things will start happening.
yeah,
And also, we talked about that, that you need to be open.
right,
You have to tell other people what you're struggling.
yeah, oh yeah,
Because, like I said, we living in the world that basically everything needs to be, so tight
right,
that, if you tell them, it means that, especially men, growing up in a culture like, hey, if you show your emotions like you're not a man.
right, right.
Because men doesn't show emotions like you're crying or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Show me a man who hasn't cried, and
Yeah.
that would, yes. It's just that, to just know that
Be a man, be a man.
yeah. And that was in my case. It was like, all right, be a man. Well, it's scary. It was scary for me to be a man, just because of, I was dealing with things as, 6'9", 300-pound guy as a 12-year-old kid. So, I was a man, and the world saw this appearance, but I wasn't, I was dealing things as an emotional level and sometimes a physical level as an 11 or 12-year-old kid.
Especially, I mean, in your case, like you said, you are tall, you're a big guy, and if you show some emotions and all that, or you telling people, "Hey, I'm hurting," man, you're a big guy.
Yeah.
Be a
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, and I heard that for so long. It's like, man, just like, what do you mean? Like, no way you deal with that. And I was like, yes, I do. And it was just that. It was that getting like not like just seeking it. So you'd be like, no, I feel this, and I feel it for a reason, and just being open about it, just enough, to get that help, to be led to the point that I'm at now. And it's a journey to accept that. It's not it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, and I think if you are in a relationship like a spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, I think that also, kind of responsibility for other person that basically make sure that you are okay,
Right.
and you are not struggling, anything, something like that. Because, when we are so close to each other, sometimes we don't see the signs that we are basically struggling inside.
Right.
And we just, like you said, we put the mask on.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not going to tell our spouse or our husband or, girlfriend or boyfriend, oh, we are basically struggling inside because you're a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes to that same thing. Oh, be a man.
Right. And it's having the hard conversations,
Yeah.
and realizing that as hard as they are, that's where the joy comes from, because you don't have to deal with that, and you're called.
Exactly.
You're called to express that to so you're freed from it, and none of us are called to live in the bondage and then the shame and the guilt. So it's just, and that's where it starts. It's bringing it to light and just having somebody else with a similar path or a similar story to say, hey, man, I get it. And at a point in my life now, it's like I'm around men who still struggle. I'm around men who are further along their journey and just starting their journey. And it's accepting that. It's not criticizing that man, but it's coming arm to arm with them saying, hey, man, I get it. I get it, and then my heart breaks for you. And, and I think that's where we need to get to, especially as men, as leaders. Like, we have to get to a point where we understand, and we don't convict somebody. We can correct, and we can, but to get to a point of understanding.
Yeah, I think it comes to the same thing, the openness and the communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people who are struggling, men or women, both, we don't communicate very well.
Right.
And that's where the problem basically starts. I have some friends who basically still struggling with this alcohol.
Right.
But they are not open.
Right. Yeah.
Very few people know they're struggling.
Yeah.
And they're not seeking help. Even though you offer them help or something, they say, oh, no, I'm good.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
From a man who was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just that, and my heart goes out for them, because there's no words that are going to save that person. It's just the journey that they're on, and then an action is going to, the obedience. That's where either them seeing it from another, per man or woman, and return them doing it. That's just where the journey starts, because, myself, there was no words that were going to save me. It was just, and as men, we like that. We're action. We seek these adventures. Like, we're called, even as a young boy, like, I look at my son and he's so full of adventure. And as men, that's what we are too. We just seek adventures. So it's what adventure are we seeking, and like that's I think that's the journey.
By default, as a man, we are, of course, as a protectors, and we also we basically, we are kind of protectors, so we're going to protect no matter what, no matter how we are feeling.
Right.
I think it goes back to the hunter-gathering kind of thing, because, they said the women are more communicator because they communicate when like we are talking like that.
Right.
So they think that we are communicating very good. But men basically, even though if they sit side by side, because that's our ancestors hunter gathering where they're sitting side by side and talking,
Right.
and we are listening to each other. But if a woman sit next to you and talk to you, she thinks that you're not listening because you're not facing to her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just accepting like all the different forms of communication.
Yeah.
And my thing is, with the words, I got a visual, very early on in my journey. It's, mine was sports. I think God put sports in my life for visuals, and I just visualized it's like, basically what I was doing was I was surrounding myself by faithful men who spoke the words and was obedient. But it would, a visual that I got, it was just like going to Michael Jordan and him telling you all best basketball player ever, and just listening to his words would do nothing, but if you put his words into action, you would become a little bit better. So I started doing that in my faith journey. It's like, okay, just hearing these words, aren't going to do anything. Like you have to put in work, and it's the same thing in every aspect of your life. It's you can seek the counsel, but once you seek the counsel, then you have to put it into action. And as you do that, then you start that's where the strength and the endurance comes from, because and really it's, because a lot of days, whether you wake up sick or you wake up like you just don't feel like doing it. It's that endurance and strength that you build on the tough days that are going to get you through, the harder days or the good days, because you have that routine, you have that, you have that obedience in you. And it goes back to, even basketball. You shoot the basketball the same way every time, but you practice over and over to get to that one shot. So it's even that as life, you practice however many times you need to, and then when you're called to get into the game, you're ready. And
so do you have someone that you look up to right now, basically to follow? And I'm talking about like some kind of a leader, or your ideal person, like Michael Jordan, or
Yeah, I don't know if I have kind of the superhero type.
Yeah.
It's just men for me and my story. It's men within the church.
In the church, okay.
that are pointing me back to, the word, the truth. I think that's for me. Just like-minded people right now who are on the same journey, and we can sit there and talk. As we are. So yeah, I would think just that.
It's a fascinating conversation, Philip. Before we wrap up, do you want to say anything else? Do you want to give message to someone who's young and struggling, and not only young but anybody who's struggling, and you can help with them?
Yeah, I would say my only encouragement is just know that whatever you're struggling with, whether it's a substance or whatever it is, just know that there's something deeper than that, once you seek help and you start to realize, all of the other things, then, that substance will just go away, and it just won't, your desires will change. And then just that, to realize that you're just in a season of life, and realize that you're passing through that season for a reason. And that's to be a light to somebody, that who needs it, so that goes back to, pray for the endurance or strength. And, that would be my encouragement is, don't give up. And
I think life is a season, because once when you have a winter, then of course, then you have summer, you have fall, you have spring, and that's just life is. So right now, somebody may be in a winter season, and they're basically looking forward to a spring.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. So, well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Farhan. Yes.
And we'll actually have another, conversation like that. So we'll bring you back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.